Well, good morning. Well, if you're here for the first time, it's great to see you. My name's Simon, I'm the lead minister here. I just want to kind of add to the excitement for next week. I'm really looking forward to Mark Greenwood coming. Mark, he came to, I think about 13, 14 years ago to the church in Chesterfield. He was fairly unknown in those days. It was actually another evangelist we couldn't get. He said, oh, there's this guy called Mark Greenwood, and he was fantastic. And turned out, when I was chatting to him, he said, oh, I've been in Caerphilly last week. And I said, tell me who you were with. And it was my brother-in-law and sister-in-law at their church, and so we've had links with him, but he really is fantastic. What I love about Mark is that he's funny, he's clear about Jesus, and he's kind of very ordinary. You know, you look at him, he's just kind of an ordinary guy, but he's just got this extraordinary way about him. So yeah, bring your friends along, and don't forget February the 28th. That's going to be at the Griffin's Head, at the annex there, and that's going to be a really great evening, because it'll make us laugh, but actually, while people are laughing, he gets under the radar and plants a seed in there. Christianity and Comedy Night. Because Mark says, I want to be up front. You know, it is about faith, but it's, you know, we're going to look at the funny side of things as well. He did get in trouble. In my last church was very conservative, and he got in trouble with the "we and the poo" joke. So I just warn you for that. You know, if you're sensitive about jokes about we and the poo, you'll find out when you get there. He might not do that one anymore, but okay. Well, it's that time of year when people get into new fitness regimes, you know, when the gyms are packed. I mean, I went to gyms for years actually, and I got fed up with it and I swim instead, which, I mean, I hate gyms, I hated it, and I really enjoy swimming. But this little clip brings back memories of my first trip to the gym.
Hearty welcome, biscuit. Excuse me, I don't think these doors are working. If it's a press the knob and release, it is not functioning. I'm really banging the knob now. Don't.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm fine. My workouts start the minute I enter the building. I am permanently pumping.
Do you want a hand?
No, I've got it. There she goes. Okay. That way. It's just the ones I'm used to, a bit less.
Yeah.
I mean, what do they do? I mean, does anyone really know what they do?
Keep going. You'll be halfway across the channel.
Right. Do you know, I'm just going to get the ferry.
Don't you just love Miranda? And actually, I so empathise with that. I remember a time when I went to the gym, and it was one of those kind of running machines, and I forgot how you switch it off. And so I tried to get off while it was going, and I kind of fell flat on my face. And the gym instructor, he was just like that. You know, he kind of like gave a smirk, you know, he just sort of said, I help you. And they always kind of like, the personal trainers always kind of a bit kind of on another level, aren't they? You know, people of authority. Well, lots of us start the new year with these kind of goals, determined to get fit, lose weight, and also change things about our lives that we don't like. But, you know, in all realism, they don't always go to plan. I mean, on the whole, I quite like this time of year, but I know what it's like, you know, with the fitness goals and the weight goals and the work goals, and you know, sometimes it can all fall a bit flat. I love the sense of beginning, but it's when you get the problems that kind of knock you off course. I often begin the new year full of enthusiasm and purpose, but you know, there are lots of times when a big problem comes out of nowhere, and that's it. You know, I'm back where I started and all those goals have gone. Or something really upsets me or discourages me and I feel so overwhelmed with it, I forget about the goals. I wonder if you've experienced that. And maybe you're thinking, yeah, I really want to break that cycle this year. I really want to see change in my life. Not just the superficial things like losing a bit of weight and getting a bit fit, but really getting my life together. And if you're a Jesus follower, really getting my life, my discipleship with Jesus on track. And maybe it's the reason you're here today. You might be exploring faith and you've come here to try and kickstart your year. You might be thinking about Alpha, which is great, and we've got one coming up in February. Well, I'm going to do my very best to help you. And if you're a Jesus follower and you've had similar experiences to me, I don't want you to feel condemned, but I want to see actually there is a way of kind of breaking out of the cycle, because I've been actually trying to do it this week because something's kind of knocked me off course a little bit. But, I'm making sure I'm trying to get back on course. You start with a bang, you hit a brick wall, but the key is, to get up again and move forward. We want this year to be different. So we're in week 2 of our series Resolution, or Resolution. It's kind of a play on the word resolution. And we've been doing a bit of rethinking about this whole issue. When we make resolutions or goals for the new year, they're usually based around the question, how can I make my life better? How can I be fitter? How can I be healthier? How can I get that promotion? How can I improve my relationships which help me? It tends to be self-centered. That's natural. I'm not condemning that, but it's a fact. But what we did was we turned that question on its head and asked something different. How can I make the world a better place? Now that's a tough call. Little me, and you look at the news and just you look at what's going on around you and you feel overwhelmed and you think, wow, that's a tough call. But then we had a saying that was adapted from Mother Teresa by a Christian social justice campaigner called Dylan Burrows, particularly aimed at people of faith, but I think it's applicable to all of us. And he said, God is calling you to change the world one life at a time, and one small step at a time. And so we made a change to that question. We said, how can I make the world around me a better place? How can I make it a better place for the people I work with, the people I live with, the people in my family, the people around me I see in need? And we saw from the example of a guy called Nehemiah that actually it's not as difficult as it looks. It's a matter of finding out what's tugging at my heart. We looked at Nehemiah, who was living in exile in Persia, and his home city was in ruins, and the people came and told him about it, and he said his heart was broken, it was tugging at his heart, and he had to take steps to do something about it. What is it you see in the situation around you, a person who's in need, or something that you can do one small thing about? What's tugging at your heart? And then take the first step to do something about it. And I deliberately say step because it just starts with one step. I want you to see actually it's easier than it sounds. It doesn't have to be something massive, because the trouble is we think, I've got to lose 3 stone, or I've got to get that next grade or the grade after that. But often it's little things. That's what God calls us to. Little things, step by step, because big changes start with small acts. And you know what? Not only will that make life better for someone around you, it'll transform your life too. Because if you want to become a better person, you need to make the world around you a better place. Changing our lives actually is looking beyond ourselves and to other people, and actually that turns things inside out. Just last week I was looking at something, a friend of mine called Sean Lambert, who's written a lot of books with a Christian approach to mindfulness, and he was talking about, are we in a spacious place or a narrow place? And he talked about kind of like we've got two screens in our head, the side screen he calls it, where you've got all those negative things and things that condemn you, I've done that wrong, this is terrible, that person's hurt me, or the big screen, actually where we look at the bigger picture, we look out of ourselves. And he said, actually, one of the things you need to do is actually reach out to someone. And I was particularly upset about something. And so I thought, I need to do that. So what I did was I rang up a couple in my church, elderly couple for my first ever church, lovely couple. And it was really sad. Their daughter who was about the same age as me, their daughter passed away suddenly. Last year it was their first Christmas and New Year without her, and I thought, actually, let's stop thinking about myself. I'm going to ring them up and see how they are. And I had a lovely chat with them and prayed with them. And that's often how we change our situation, is actually not focusing on ourselves, but looking outward. Well, this week I want us to see how this is part and parcel of following Jesus, because I'm not just giving you, some ways of living better, and if you're not a Jesus follower, you think, these are ways of living better, and they are, and you can try them for free, but they're part and parcel of following Jesus. He's the one who showed us how to do that, and actually it's through the Holy Spirit whom Jesus gives to us that we're able to do that. It's through a relationship with Him. And if you're not a Jesus follower, you get a chance to look into all this faith stuff and see what it's all about. So I'm going to follow on with another question. Each week we're going to ask a question through January. And this is the second question. What can I do with my life? Now, if you're thinking, I want to make a difference. I want to make my life count for something big. I mean, we all do, don't we? I need to be upfront with you. Because if you want to make a difference, you'll need to pay the price. But going back to those fitness regimes, they're not easy, are they? And people say, no pain, no gain. And the same goes for making real change in your life. But I want to give you an incentive here. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to be like a personal trainer and say, come on, move it. One of the things I did like at the gym was not paying for a personal trainer and watching them put people through it and thinking, you are wasting your money, You're just paying for them. Sorry if there's a personal trainer here. You're paying for them to shout, come on, move it. Nice job to have, isn't it, to shout at people to get moving. I'm not going to do that. I want to give you an incentive, because the more you give, the more you gain. If you don't remember anything else I've said today, I want you to remember that. The more you give, the more you gain. Let's just say that. The more you give, the more you gain. That's great. And if you're exploring faith, I don't want to soft soap you and pretend that following Jesus is easy and fantastic and a picnic. Well, it is fantastic, but it's not easy. It's not a picnic. I want to tell you that having a relationship with Jesus and placing your life under His rule, being part of what He calls His kingdom, living His way, is amazing. It's transforming. There's no other way. I often talk to friends and relatives who aren't Christians and think, how could you face this without Jesus? Actually, when I was talking to those people from my old church, they love Jesus so much, they said something similar. We don't know how people can get through this without the Lord, they said. We don't know how, but we've got the Lord. He's helping us through it. But what gain you have surpasses anything you give. And if you're a Jesus follower, and you've worked out what's tugging at your heart, and you've asked Jesus what He wants you to do, I want you to realise it's going to cost you, and count the cost. So you're ready and not knocked off by a surprise when it gets tough. Because what you gain surpasses anything you give. The more you give, the more you gain. Now, Jesus never sugarcoated it. He always said that following Him was going to be costly. So let's just get Doctor Who's TARDIS for a minute and go back to the Middle East. 2,000 or so years ago, when Jesus was walking around in Israel telling people about this new thing, this kingdom of God, this rule of God in people's lives, this new way of relating to God that He was going to bring about. And they were waiting for a king at that time. And they were hoping that this king that had been promised to them by God, was going to take the Roman rule away from them and give them a whole new start. But Jesus was going to do something far more radical. And He's traveling around Israel telling people how God was going to turn their lives upside down. Now, they were used to religious leaders. They were very religious people, but the kind of religious leaders, teachers and speakers they were used to were boring and dull. They were used to hearing self-righteous religious leaders who lost their attention within a few seconds. But Jesus was so different. He was so engaging. He talked about life. He talked about forgiveness. He lived what He said. He was on their level. And not only did He say amazing things, He worked miracles. The blind could see, the deaf could hear, lepers were healed, and all this was going on. Everyone was talking about Jesus. And here He is, He's at the peak of His popularity. And He would have been the talk of the town. You can imagine what people were saying. This guy can speak straight into your life. He can heal your diseases. He can make your life better. He's the man of the moment. I mean, it's a really big deal. People wanted to be part of the movement. And there they are kind of talking about Jesus, and suddenly he's spotted. And they can see him because he's in the distance there. He can see them, they can see him, and he's talking to those people who are close to him, what they call the disciples, his early followers. And then someone says, hey, there's Jesus. He's amazing. Another person chips in. Did you see how he healed that blind guy? Then another. Yeah, the deaf can hear and the lame can walk and the dead are made alive again. Yes, says another. He'd even fed thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread and fish. And then someone makes a recommendation they all agree with. Let's stick with this guy. He's God's miracle worker. He's even going to change everything. Maybe he'll even take down Rome. Maybe he's the king we've been waiting for. And they see Jesus is calling them over. The excitement mounts. The crowd presses in. Jesus lifts up his hand, signaling that he's about to speak. And the whole crowd are hanging on his every word. What's he going to say? What's he going to do? And Jesus totally blindsides them. If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. They look around at each other in astonishment. Wait? What? Jesus, did you just say we need to pick up a cross? I mean, a cross was an insult to them. A cross was the Roman form of execution. They were used to seeing people on crosses. It was horrible. It was about death. And actually, when people carried a cross, it was actually they had to carry it to get to their execution site. It was kind of living death. You know the things that people get executed on? Come on, Jesus, this isn't you. Yep, says Jesus, that's exactly what I mean. Come with me and be ready to lay down the whole of your life as a sacrifice. That's what it's going to cost you. I'll give you everything, but it's going to cost you everything. Jesus was heading towards a cross. I mean, we see the full picture for him. We know he went to the cross, he laid down his life, he rose from the dead, and he calls us to follow the path. Not literally, maybe to die on a cross, though some of the early Christians did actually. I mean, there's the story of Andrew, and that he asked to be crucified on a different kind of cross because he didn't want to be he didn't want to take the glory away from his Lord. And you've got the St Andrew's cross, which is an X. Some early Christians did. Some people still have been. But he was actually talking about the principle of laying down your life of sacrifice, of following that path of sacrifice that he had. Jesus was clear. I'm going to the cross. If you're not willing to go there with me, you can't be my disciple. See, that's where it gets real, and I don't want to undersell this. I don't just kind of dupe you into thinking, yeah, it's easy, it's great. It is great, but there's a cost. Following Jesus isn't about being popular or chasing great experiences. It's about surrender. It's about putting aside our comfort and choosing his way, even when it's hard. You want to follow me, says Jesus, then here's the deal. Say no to your own way. Step into the sacrifice. Follow in my footsteps. And let's be honest, that's not for everyone. Sometimes I've sat down with someone and, I've spelt this out and they said, no, it's not for me. That's fine, but I don't want to soft soap it. I remember, when I was younger, because I was in my enthusiasm, I remember I was really enthusiastic and making sure people knew. And we had a mission at my college in Grays, and this guy said he wanted to become a Christian. I said, well, are you ready to lay down your life for Jesus? Yeah, he said. I said, so what if someone came in here and put a gun to your head and said, do you follow Jesus? What would you say? Would you say yes and be shot? And he went, yeah. He must have been terrified, but he still came to Jesus. And he's still going on with Jesus now. And he's had a hard life, actually, but he still loves Jesus. But I wouldn't recommend that. But it's the principle here. We've got to be ready to give everything. It costs everything, but we gain everything. And it's worth it. See, Jesus isn't just inviting you to follow him. He's calling you into a life that's bigger, deeper, and more meaningful than anything else you could imagine. Whoa, says someone in the crowd. That's a big call. I rather like my little life, and I'm going to hang on to it. Okay, says Jesus, but bear this in mind. If you try to hang on to your life, you lose it. I mean, we all kind of hang on. It's instinctive, isn't it? We all hang on. We all hang on to life. We all protect ourselves. Yesterday, I took a little bit of break in preparation. I went for a walk in the Mist Hills. Part of my survival package in the Mist Hills, if I see the cows, I turn the other way. They freak me out. Horrible, dangerous things. They're all right to eat, but don't get near them. No cows. That was great. No cows on the field, so I could go up the hills. But as I did so, I hadn't noticed there was a bit of ice there. And whoa! And it was really, I was really pleased with myself. But my instinct was to kind of balance myself, and I stood. Must have been all that fall on the ski slopes I've done over the years that helped me. But that's instinctive, isn't it? We instinctively protect ourselves. That's how we're wired. But Jesus says, actually, this is kind of turned upside down. I mean, it doesn't mean that we deliberately fall and that sort of thing. But he's talking about hanging on to things that won't last. Hanging on to our life, saying, I must have this. I must have this job. I must live this way. And we can only hang on to our lives for so long. Eventually we lose them, one way or another. You might work your socks off for a glittering career, and congratulations on what you've got. You might build up a wonderful business. That's great. But one day it'll be gone, because you'll be gone. You'll be a memory. That's a fact. It's not nice to think about, but it's a fact all the same. But once we've faced up to this, once we've said, I can't hold on to this forever. It's like on the beach. When I just want to kind of amuse myself for a bit, and I like to grip in the sand and see how long I can hold it. It slips out eventually. Life slips away from you eventually. Sorry not to cheer you up at the beginning of the new year, but it's a fact. But here's the good news. But if you give up your life for my sake and the sake of the good news, you'll save it. He's not saying, you may as well give up on your ambitions. Whatever you achieve won't last. What he's saying is, give up what you can't keep to gain what you can't lose. Don't grab hold of those things. Grab hold of something bigger. Living eternally with me, being part of my kingdom, part of my purpose. And you won't lose. And later on he says, what advantage of it is if you get all these things and lose your soul? You've got eternity with me. That's far greater. The more you give, the more you gain. So let's get back to this week's question. What can I do with my life? Well, firstly, if you're not a person of faith, I want you to think about how Jesus is calling you into something bigger than yourself. It's not about becoming religious. It's not about coming to church, though it's great to see you here. It's about a relationship with Jesus and being part of something so much bigger. And what is it you're holding on to? What is it you're thinking, no, I can't give that up. I don't want to lose that. Is it worth it? Is it worth holding on for that just won't last to get something that you gain forever? And if you are a Jesus follower, I want to urge you to ask yourself two questions. What am I holding on to? Maybe it's something the Lord's calling you to give up, and you want it, or something the Lord's calling you to give away, or maybe it's actually a difficult situation and you're just going over and over and over it again. Someone's hurt you and just going over, and people say let go and you can't, and it's harming you spiritually. And how can I let go? Ask God how you can let go, and He'll show you. And don't forget, the more you give, the more you gain. See, the trouble with a subject like this is we tend to think it's massive things, I mean, at this stage, I should be coming into land and say, right, all of you, I want you to sign up to go to Outer Mongolia and cure everyone of leprosy. Whether there's leprosy there or not, I might be. You might think that actually, we can do that, can't we? We're us preachers, we get in, we've got everyone's attention, and we're in for the kill, and we ask them to do big things. Or I might say, okay, all right, everyone, I want you all to covenant £1,000 a month to the church because we need it. Well, we're not like that. Honestly, we're not like that. No, actually. It's often small choices that we make each day. See, we see these things as massive, but actually they're simple, a simple series of steps. And if you're not a Jesus follower, you can take these steps. But what I would say is, look at the bigger picture. This is all part of Jesus' way of life that He empowers you to do if you know Him. Choices like releasing the sense of hurt and resisting the urge to snap back when someone insults you, and choosing to respond with kindness instead. So you're letting go of that hurt and showing them kindness. Breaking free from the pressure to join the crowd in shunning a difficult colleague and extending friendship to them instead. Giving up the desire to rush home on a cold January evening, choosing instead to stay a little longer to support a co-worker who's struggling with their work. Overcoming the fear of offending a friend and bravely inviting them to Alpha. Setting aside the worry of being labelled a religious nut and offering to pray a friend who's going through a hard time. I'd recommend that. If someone's going through a hard time, just say, can I pray for you for a minute? They invariably say yes. The only person who's ever said no to me has been a Christian. I don't know why, but she was really... I was involved in leading a trip, and she wasn't happy that the ski passes had come in and her room wasn't right. I said, can I pray for you? No, you can't! That's the only person who's ever said that. Sacrificing your evening relaxation to lend a hand to someone who genuinely needs your help. Actually, letting go of the fear of looking stupid in front of your colleagues to tell people about Jesus. And also, I talked about this earlier, but letting go of hurt. We hold on to hurt, don't we? We hold on to it. I don't know why it's kind of instinctive. We hold on to it. And actually, Jesus says, let go. Give it to me. All that sense of failure, when you feel that you've muffed something up and you just go round and round and round, ruminating, thinking, I could have done this, I could have done that, I could have changed this. But letting go of that, saying, Lord, I did what I could, show me the lessons and help me move forward and serve you more effectively. Well, as I finish, I want to tell you about a lady who really lived this. This lady, now, many people here know us. This is Jean, and she went to be with Jesus a few weeks ago. And we had our Thanksgiving service for her on Friday, which was a difficult one to take, but a privilege. Jean was an amazing lady. She didn't go to Outer Mongolia and heal people of leprosy. But she made a huge difference to people's lives in lots of little ways that added up. And I've got permission to tell you about this, but there's a lady called Sita who lives next door to her. And Sita, she lost her parents quite young, and she was brought up by a lady called Mary in London, who was a Christian. And then he said when Mary died, she just moved to Hucknall, and she moved next door to this lady called Jean. And she said, God gave me another mother. And Jean just gave herself to that family. And became a mother and a grandmother, and you could see how deeply they all loved her. And she made a huge difference to people in little ways, just little ways that added up. People got to appointments because she drove them there. She was driving. I used to call it the Red Devil, But in fact, once, she was pretty nippy, and someone nipped out in front. I was going to blast her with me horn. Oh no, that's Jean. She'll tell me off if I do that. People felt listened to and loved by her. She made the world around her a better place. And actually her life was far richer than it would have been without all of this. She left an amazing legacy. She'd be remembered for that. And at the heart of it, of course, was she was a follower of Jesus. And she took ill, and she went quite early, quite quickly, within weeks. And I think everyone was just amazed and blessed by the way she said, don't worry. And she said this to all her family. I know where I'm going. I'm trusting in Jesus. And all her family said, we were amazed by her faith. She told everyone, it's okay. I'm trusting in Jesus. She was living proof of the more you give, the more you gain. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you that Jesus came to give us that new way of life, that new rule. And as we think about the new year, we want to live in that. Always that freshness and moving forward. But Lord, we can get knocked off course. And help us to get back on our feet. And actually to use our life, to make our life count by following you and paying the cost by laying down our life. And we come to communion in a moment where we think about the cost that Jesus paid. Help us as we do so as an act of worship say, yes, Lord, we're going to live for you. We're going to live for you in these days. And I pray for any who don't know you here. Thank you they're here. And help them to take that first step on the path of a relationship with Jesus. Amen.